Dybala! He is something else. Di Lorenzo, and still Di Lorenzo! The captain brings the house down. Partenopea champions once again, but the 33-year wait will now officially come to an end.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie A Sit Down, World Football Index's podcast for your Calcio to go. I am Frank Crivello. He is Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing this evening?
We're okay. I'm enjoying a River West Stein Amber Lager by the good folks at Lakefront Brewery here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. What are you drinking tonight?
Something not too far from you. Great Lakes Brewing Company. It's Oktoberfest. It's time.
Very nice. Season. Very nice. The microbrews around here know their Oktoberfest. I promise you that. So, yeah, no problem about that.
Ciao, Anthony. Ciao, Apex.
Good to have you guys with us. If you're in the chat, tell us what you're drinking tonight. We like to enjoy talking a little calcio over a beverage or two, if we can afford it. So. Match week 2 is in the books, Richard. We had some initial impressions on match week 1 that, match week 2 might have validated some suspicions. Some games were some teams that looked great in match week 1. All of a sudden, match week 2 don't look so great. And that's why we say you got to play the games, right?
Right.
So we're going to touch on everything that happened in match week 2. We're going to have a look at maybe a couple of trends we're seeing, some players we're kind of getting excited about, and deliver some of that for you. We'll get into some transfer news as we're getting close to deadline day on Friday. A couple of pretty interesting arrivals here announced today. Romelu Lukaku to Roma, and also Jesper Lindstrom to Napoli. I think that's going to be an interesting conversation. And the potential for Mehdi Taremi to join Milan. Latest there is Taremi wants to go. There's an agreement on a contract, and now it's just down to the teams to agree on the fee. So we'll tackle all that. We'll tackle maybe some other news and transfer notes that got overlooked. So why don't we kick it off, Richard, with a recap and take it away with everything that went on in match week 2.
All right, let's see my mouse here. Okay, starting with Saturday's matchup. So we'll start with some of the earlier games. Monza hosting Empoli, and this game was an interesting game. Monza started out on fire. Got their two goals, actually nice goals by Colpani. An interesting player there. It's a nice three-headed figure between him, Caprari, and Mota. But 2 goals by him. That's all they would need. Empoli did have more possession in the second half, but Monza took care of that game 2-0. Moving on to the first upset of the weekend. It's Frosinone hosting Atalanta. And who knew? EDF's getting off to a hot start. We did not see that had come in, right? 2 goals to 1. We got goals from Harawi, who again a second game in a row, second Frosinone player to have goals in back-to-back games in their history. And then in the 24th minute, Montarisi got a goal, make it 2-0 there. Shock on hand. Duvan Zapata would get a wonderful goal of the week candidate in the 56th to pick one back. Not enough though. De Catalare did look impressive in that game, but all for naught. 2-1 Frosinone, shock victory there. Moving on to Milan Torino. Goal scoring started early on. Wonderful goal of the week candidate play between Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Christian Pulisic, putting the ball away back to net. His second goal in as many games. 1-0 at that point. A rather soft penalty at 43rd minute for me.
Very soft.
Olivier Giroud converted really well to make it 2-0. Excuse me, and then Teo Hernandez, one of the goals of the week there, with a beautiful chip with the outside of his foot just before halftime, make it 3-0. They would add a fourth through a penalty. Torino did peg one back to make it 1-1 early on, but it was all Milan in this game. Another soft penalty for me in the 85th minute with Giroud converted again really well. 4-1 victory for Milan there. So pretty emphatic victory there. Moving on to Sunday's game. We'll start out with Fiorentina Lecce. This game was interesting early. Nico Gonzalez scored a goal early in I think a header in the 3rd minute. followed by Alfred Duncan with a wonderful goal, wonderful play really by Fiorentina in the 25th. He had a chance to make it 3-0 and put this game to rest just before halftime and missed a great opportunity. 2-0 at halftime, come out the break. Rafia with a wonderful goal just 4 minutes on the other side of the half. Makes it 2-1, and then making his debut for Lecce, Kristovic gets a wonderful header, a wonderful assist that led to that. But in the 76th, 2-2 Lecce again, stealing some points earlier in the season. Good for them. Moving on to Napoli, Sassuolo. The champions looked comfortable in this game. There was a penalty, clear penalty in the music playing in the background here for me. A clear penalty in the 16th-minute. Victor Osimhen would convert, and then there'd be another penalty later in the second half where Raspadori would be stopped. Play would continue. Di Lorenzo would get a nice goal in the 64th minute. Napoli fairly comfortably 2-0 victory over Sassuolo. Sassuolo, who looked pretty good in the first game. Napoli.
Hang on. You said Raspadori was stopped. I mean, yeah, if
he missed, I guess. Right.
Well, if you want to say the moon stopped it, then fine. Then the Raspadori was stopped. So
yeah, didn't go in the goal.
Simone Zaza was laughing at that. No, maybe not.
Maybe not. And maybe not Harry Kane either, right? Yeah. Moving on to Lazio, Genoa, goal scoring Retegui. Guys scoring goals for Genoa. It's good to see if you're an Azzurri fan. 1-0 Genoa looked like they have a shock on their hands. There were question calls for a penalty in the second half where Zaccagni goes down. For the review, referee says no foul, and I agree. It was a complete dive by Zaccagni. In a wet, soggy field at the Stadio Olimpico, Genoa win 1-0. We'll get back to this game in a second, and then the interesting game of the weekend, I would say, at least for Sunday, Juventus hosting Bologna. Bologna looking rather impressive, I thought, or maybe Juventus just looked that bad. I don't know. But early on, Ferguson, he was pretty dangerous early on in this game. He did get a goal in the 24th minute. Lovely goal of the weekend there. Vlahovic did make it 1-1. Would have been my goal of the week, but went to VAR. Offsides. I would also mention that early in the first half, Chiesa goes down in the box, claims for a shot for a penalty. No foul, in my opinion. I thought the defender was going for the ball. There was a play, though, that comes into question that's going to be really putting the clout on this weekend. And Ndoye goes down in the box. Illing pulls him down. No call. Play goes on. Juventus would end up getting an equalizer through Vlahovic in the 80th minute. Everyone's screaming, what the hell, bloody murder. And fallout from this game is referee gets suspended for 1 month because it was a legit penalty. It should have been called and it was not. So thoughts? Well, we have Monday game too, right? We got Monday's game too. I almost forgot the last two games of the weekend, right? Yep. Salernitana, Udinese, Ochoa again standing on his head. Couldn't stop Samardzic in the 57th minute, but I mean, he did everything else, I think, in this game. Buladia, a guy we're both high on, equalized in the 72nd minute, just under the keeper there. 1-1, they share the spoils there. And then in another probably emphatic statement there, New Boys Cagliari hosting Inter, Dumfries and new man Thuram linked up nicely in the 21st minute. Nice put away by Dumfries. Who knew? He's coming back on. I think Thuram is going to help him out this season, right? And then Lautaro Martinez in the 30th minute would get a nice goal himself, goal of the week candidate. 2-0. Inter really comfortable in this game. I thought Hakan Çalhanoğlu was rather impressive in this game as a defensive midfielder. But those are the 10 games this week. George is in the house just in time for the Cagliari game. Thoughts on this weekend, Frank? Where do you want to start?
Let me start with the Juve Bologna game.
All right.
And I know the controversy we're going to get talked over and over. I'm glad that the referee was suspended. I mean, I think that was a stand that Italian Federation and the governing bodies there needed to make. We don't need this ugly, controversy with referees with the reputation that Italy has earned through the years. Some things that I'm noticing, and I'm noticing it with a few teams, and when I'm watching Bologna play, and they did this to a pretty large degree against Milan too. They were, and I think in the game where they lost 2-0 to Milan, I think that Bologna were unlucky to not score in that game, actually.
Yeah.
But when I look at what they're doing and how Thiago Motta has these guys moving off of the ball. It's interesting to watch. Xerxes is big and physical, and they're playing off of him as a target. And if you can see what's happening here, players are getting wide. They're stretching, and in this case with Juve, a back three. You stretch Alexandro. Alexandro doesn't know who to chase, who to defend anymore. I think Alexandro's past it. He's getting to that point at least. And there's gaps now for Lewis Ferguson to run into. It's how he scored. Yeah. I saw Ndoye do this a lot. And a failure on Juventus's part to track the midfield runners going through. I think where Milan had some success, or Milan were able to diffuse some of this, was that they were ready. They were ready for the most part for some of those runs off after the ball, was being played off of Xerxes. There were still some moments where Bologna got through. There was a couple of mistimed runs that led to offside. But I think when you watch Bologna's movement, and especially in counterattacking situations, I think they're going to frustrate a lot of teams this season. We'll see how Salamakers fits into this picture, because it sounds like he's going there on loan with an option. Where do you put? I mean, you're going to play him from the bench. You're not going to put him in for Orsolini. You're not going to put him in for Ndoye.
Wing back.
But you're going to put him in for Posh
as a substitute.
Well, sure. Okay, fine. I mean, yeah, and that's what I see as a substitute, a guy that's going to just kind of help give them some depth.
Yeah.
So,
so do you credit Bologna in this game for them being the reason why they played so well, or not so much Juventus struggling to contain them? You think it's more on Bologna on this one?
I credit Bologna for their initiative and their approach to this game. I think that, with Juventus having more of the possession in this game, they got stretched, and Bologna is able to exploit them in the counterattack, and they were exploiting Juventus before they could get into those recovery situations. I think they gave a very good blueprint for how to beat Juventus if you really want to beat them. Invite possession. And I think that when you saw them, they crowded things for the most part. They finally were beaten by Vlahovic. Yeah. But they crowded things for the most part, which made crossing difficult and getting service into Vlahovic rather difficult. So I think that there were some pretty good things that they showed in there. I think that they learned, but you're seeing a lot, and what I saw with Bologna, I'm seeing across the league, you're seeing a lot of movement off the striker very early on in the season. Yeah. And I'm going to be curious to see over the next few weeks, is that a product of the teams not playing, some of these teams not playing together much yet, getting their fitness, defenders are kind of all over the place. They haven't, repetition and playing together. The tactical league that Serie A is, I'm interested in seeing how the teams adjust to all of this now and how they block some of it off. Do some of these teams go back to being more low block type teams, where they try to eliminate a lot of this stuff? Because I'll tell you this. I'll give you a couple of other examples. Fiorentina found themselves chasing shadows in the second half against Lecce. Torino found themselves chasing shadows almost the entire 90 minutes against Milan. With some of these plays and some of these play and some of these movements. And if you're putting enough playmakers behind the striker in a la Monza, okay, it stretches you and makes you very difficult to defend where those runs come into play. Seeing the trend of midfielders starting to come into attacking areas and be dangerous. Who is really good at that? Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, and he's not at Lazio anymore. No. And it's why Lazio. I think it's a big part of why Lazio are struggling so much. I think Lazio have become predictable in their play. Okay, I think you've got a three-man midfield, but none of them know where to go yet. And I'm kind of going all over the place about it. But I'm seeing the Fiorentinas, the Lecces, the Napolis, the Milans of the world. And I'm probably leaving another team out. Monza. Okay. With this off-ball movement, midfielders running in front of forwards, and getting in dangerous positions where they're flicked on, they're played in, runs are timed beautifully. And I'm seeing Lazio with a 3-man midfield where there are no answers. It's predictable. They're all in the same positions. I'm not seeing a lot of movement with them. I'm seeing a lot of hoofing into Immobile and hoping that he scores. Yeah. It's going to be a long season for Lazio if they continue to play that way. So those are just some of the initial observations. I kind of started with Bologna, but I let it, I kind of branched it out into some of the teams that I'm seeing, assembling good playmakers behind that can play behind and off the striker, that can run in front of the striker and get in position to score dangerous goals. And I think that we're going to see more of this as weeks go on, and it's going to be interesting to see how the teams that are struggling with it make their adjustments.
Serie A is the ever chess match, right? And at this point, the evolution of the offensive play has really shifted toward the strikers holding up the play with the runners coming in and finding them, right? All those teams you mentioned, Milan, Bologna, all those teams are doing it. Atalanta did it in a losing effort. Yeah. Napoli are doing it to an extent as well. A lot of these teams are doing it now. And so what we're seeing is very inventful offensive football. And the counter move is going to come here, where I imagine the little blocks can come back into play. You'll see Juventus really start to adapt to this, and a lot of several other teams. I mean, the clear front runners at the moment look like front runners in Napoli, Milan, and Inter. They look comfortable in both their games so far. Starting with the Bologna Juventus game, I want to give the credit to Bologna. I think what Thiago Motta doing there is really wonderful. It's really, I don't want to say innovative because a lot of other people are doing it, but doing it at the club he's doing it at, he's finding ways to get the most out of his players, right? They're finding ways to play above their level, or maybe find the potential that they always had. And we've always said this to Bologna, that they've had the talent, they just struggled, and they're probably a good, just at the outside of Europa League type spot or Conference League spot, and they're starting to play like that now, and they look like it against Juventus. And yes, Juventus looked good when they had possession of the ball, but as you said, it's the way they set up defensively, tactically through Thiago Motta. They collapse, force the turnovers, and go on a counterattack, and then really catch the team on the brinks, on the ropes. And I thought Bologna did that massively in this game. Credit to Juventus, they try to keep fighting back in there, and they want to claim foul on them because they felt that they got gypped. But I don't think so. I think I thought Bologna deserved every bit of the points. Probably could have got all the points. Honestly, if that foul was called, right, they would have been 2-0 at that point. Hard to come back at that point. The way Juventus was playing in the game and Bologna were playing. I agree that the referee should have gotten a suspension. A month, I think, is a little stringent. I mean, if they're going to be consistent with this and run the league, fine. I'm all about that. But right off the bat, for one call in that game, I thought it was a little much. But hey, whatever. I'm not going to argue as long as they keep it consistent, right?
Yeah.
Moving on to some of the other games, Fiorentina Lecce. Again, Fiorentina looked good offensively, but they also found out that if you don't capitalize on your chances, certain teams can find a way back. And even teams like Lecce, who you would consider maybe a lower half team, came back. And Lecce, to their credit, they've been playing really well these first two games. Obviously, the first games at home had the crowd behind them, but in that second half, they had all the motivation in the world to get back into this game. That Alfred Duncan miss was huge for them. That's a big motivation. And they got back in the game, and you like what they're doing offensively. Defensively, they got to figure things out, but offensively, they got some pieces there, some unsung heroes that are doing really well. And I was talking with some of the guys, the Lecce Fan Club UK, and so it's always good to talk about them, about the guys. And it's just what these guys like Rafia is doing. Good to see Restovic, a wonderful signing by them. Hopefully he does as well this year. But I'm not worried about Fiorentina, but Lecce are impressive so far this season, as are Frosinone under EDF. Who would have thunk it, right? What they've done so far, they play within their means. They know what they're good at. They play compact defensively, not giving them too much, and taking their chances. Right, you're not going to always beat Atalanta the way they played like in that game, but they did. They got they took care of Atalanta, and Atalanta couldn't score for the life of them. Another team that can't score for the life of them, Lazio against Genoa. Genoa obviously opportunistic, but I'm not so down on Lazio as you are. I think early season hiccups. I think they're going to find their way. Obviously, the pitch, the way it was so soggy, probably played a factor in this. I'm sure the Immobile contract issues are a part of this as well. But Lazio had a lot of chances. I think they had several posts in the game as well. Not like I compare it to, and they're going to hate me for saying this, Roma last year at the start of the season, where they had all these opportunities and just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And Roma eventually found their way, albeit not that great in the table, right? So if Lazio better figure it out quicker if they want to have a chance at the top four or higher. But I'm not worried just yet. But I mean, Sadi's got to be on the keep his head on a swivel here, because we had talked about the sack race here at the preview. And one of the guys we didn't mention was Sadi, because we thought he was going to have a good season. But I mean, 2 bad games to start the season is not the greatest for him. Roma in the similar situation. What else? Well, I look around the league here. Monza, impressed by Monza so far. Even Empoli in the loss, I didn't think they were too bad. I thought Monza just was a better team. Outmanaged. The players did really. I love the movement. You talk about the movement, like Bologna have Monza as well. Really good movement on this team. I love the front three that Monza have there. And Hellas, opportunistic. My man, Andre Duda, goal and assist in this game. And Gollins with the goal of the week candidate there. A wonderful goal there. They were opportunistic, like Frosinone, and they found a way to get it done. And I'm not really worried about Roma either, but I'm sure having Big Rom is going to be an addition to their team. But some of these smaller teams are finding ways early in the season, as they should, because at the end of the season, you need every point you can get. And if you can get teams when they're not quite at their best yet, boom, that's where you got to do it. And credit to the Hellas, the Lecces, the Frosinones of the world, because they're getting it done so far.
So we're talking about some of the aggressive attacking play. We're talking about some of the midfielders getting in front of the forwards. Now the other theme I want to talk about, and it's going to kind of touch on Apex's point here: Napoli, Inter, and Milan, looking like teams that would do amazing in Europe. And here's what we've seen through 2 games with all 3 of those teams. Well, 1 goals obviously, and then it's Inter probably Inter much more so than Napoli and Milan. Have Inter? And I'll pose this question to you.
All right.
Has Inter turned into a team that had they now? I'm just trying to word this right.
All right.
Bonetti's in the house.
Hey, look at this.
Man, we got to up our game. Forza Serie A sit down. Good to have you with us, Matteo.
Yes, sir.
Here's what I observe now with Inter, and to a little bit lesser extent, Napoli and Milan. But I think the experiences that Inter have gone through, getting all the way to a Champions League final, okay, I think the experiences from that game, and I want your comments on this, they've learned how to be a team that that goes out and gets what they need. They've basically turned into game managers, okay? Because they went to Cagliari and they got 2 quick goals, and then they just managed their way through the game. I don't know.
Allegri-esque?
Well, I don't know. Not to that degree. I mean, Allegri will just put you to sleep with the way his teams play sometimes.
Yeah.
But Napoli are a little bit more ruthless. They scored 2. They're looking for 3, and they're looking for 4. Milan scored 4 at the weekend. But even when Milan beat Bologna 2-0, they got their 2. And then with the conditions of the game, the heat probably had a little bit to do with it. They kind of managed their way through the game too, and said, all right, we've got our 2. Let's just not give anything away cheap and let them back in the game. I'm starting to see Inter do a lot of that, where they get their lead and then they just don't allow anything cheap to happen, where the opponent can have a chance to be back in the game. And Cagliari and Monza might not be the greatest examples of this. We'll find out when they have to play against better teams. Yeah. But your thoughts on that? Because that's kind of what I'm noticing. Watching that Cagliari-Inter game on Monday, it's not that they Inter take their foot off the gas, but they're avoiding allowing themselves to give up anything cheap.
We should retitle this podcast to Evolutions, right? Because I think it's the evolution of Simone Inzaghi and Inter. They're adding another facet to their game that maybe they didn't have so much last year, and they learned it through the Champions League run that they went on. But they are becoming a team that can play in multiple different situations. We talked about, I think early last year, maybe the year before, that they have a plan A and maybe a plan B, but after that it kind of drops off. And now they're starting to add all these different elements to them. They're a super deep team, obviously finding a new role for Calhanoglu in the regista position that he's kind of flourishing at the moment. And so game management is part of that. And if you want to be in these games, first of all, get 2 goals early on, which is great. And then they see the game out. They didn't have to do too much, right? They didn't have to put too much. They can kind of reserve their energy for later in the season when they need it. And that's what good teams do. We talked early in the season about that cutthroat mentality. Yes, it's needed at times. But in games like this, if you have a defense like Inter does, you don't need to do that. You can just old Allegri 1.0. You get the goals you need and set up shop and block everything off and don't create a shot. Sommer two clean sheets in 2 games, right? Everyone's wondering, asking what Onana's doing over there at Manchester United. Sommer's a good goalkeeper, and he's looking at. He hasn't been challenged yet. None of the big 3 have been challenged yet. But I think this is an evolution to their game. Is this going to be how they play all season long? No. When it's required, they will play. But I can see if they go down a goal against any team, it's going to be a very attack, or let the other team have the ball and play the counterattack system. They have different facets to them now that make them even more dangerous, not only in Serie A, but also in Champions League, which is what, Simone Inzaghi is a cup merchant, as is like Pioli is, right? I think what Simone Inzaghi is doing in the season, with the cup this year, I think he's just going to keep it at this top level, and barring any mental collapses from Inter, this is the Inter we're going to see, a team that can shut it down when they need to, or be a little bit more open and score some goals. I mean, they have wonderful players all over the pitch, and the pieces are fitting in together really nicely right now. So kudos to Inzaghi, what he's done, how he's evolved as a manager. Great manager.
Goes a long way when you can just return just about everybody.
Yeah.
And
Pavard is coming.
Yeah, you can plug Sommer in goal, to your point. And then the striker that supports Martinez. And in this case, you've got Thuram, who's – and we talked about this on last week's podcast. The contrast between Thuram and Arnautovic, where Thuram can – the work rate's through the roof, where Arnautovic probably plays a little bit higher. He's a target, even though he had a very nice assist for Lautaro in the Monza win.
Yeah.
From a wide area. Well, let's be realistic. He shot that, and Lautaro happened to tap.
I like Arnautovic, so I do like
him.
He is good in the box. He's very clever with his feet, but that's an element that he has that Thuram doesn't have. It's almost like in football we use the analogy of lightning and thunder with running backs, right? The small running back who's quick versus a big, powerful one who's going to bust through the hole. It's similar to these two because Thuram is a quick, pacier guy. Arnautovic is going to be the guy in the box holding up the play, kind of send up his teammates when he can or going for the goal. There's different type strikers, but they work for Inter, and Lautaro just feeds off both of them.
Roma, there's absolutely no way on earth that when they play Inter, Milan, Napoli, the top teams in Italy, there's no way on earth they're going to play. The script is going to have them possessing the ball for 72% of the game like they did against Hellas Verona and 60% against Salernitana. Now, if I'm Inter and Milan and Napoli, I'd sure as hell go ahead and tell Roma, here, you have the ball, because you want to know why? You can counter them. And you want to know why you can counter them? Chris Smalling is taking a step back.
Yeah.
He's on his heels. He's reacting. For the second straight week, he's beaten in the 1v1 and concedes a goal. Ngonje's quicker than him, so I can excuse it. But Kandreva, I'm still scratching my head at that one. When Roma and Milan meet on Friday, because Milan want to have the ball and they want to possess it, right? Roma's going to play a lot of low block. They're going to protect Smalling. They're going to protect some of these defenders who have had their struggles. I fully expect that when they play on Friday. Yeah. But I can't really make a full judgment on Roma, except I hate seeing them when they have a lion's share of possession because they're leaking cheap goals going the other way. That's it. I hate it if I'm a Roma supporter because I'm worried about a good team that can counter them. And Hellas Verona is still not a good team, even though they've won 2 games here. Okay, they've kind of taken into the fashion in which they've won them.
They have as many wins as we thought they'd have this year.
They reached their quota exactly. So. In that sense, I still think Roma's a little bit of an incomplete. What I do know about them is that they better not get into games where they're looking to dominate possession, because when they're stretched and they're beaten, they're in trouble. Yeah.
Well, for sure about Inter. Oh, I'll say this: Napoli's going to dominate possession in any game unless they're playing like Man City, right? So I don't expect anybody to compete with them when it comes to possession. You talk about Inter, and. Big fella here says a good question. He says Inter has a better squad this year than last year. I agree with that. I do agree with that. More depth. Çalhanoğlu's got a new facet to him himself, but Yeah, I think, at least with the two Milanese clubs, when Roma plays these teams, the possession won't be, I don't think it'll be lopsided either way. I think Milan and Inter will both try to give up some possession, but it'll be more like 50-50, 55-45 in that range. I'm interested to see. I fully expect Mourinho to figure out a way to stop what Milan's bread and butter has been through the first two games, meaning the late runners, whether it's Pulisic, RLC, whoever else is coming on the back end, and it's going to probably have to be like a Leao and Teo show in this regard. Maybe even Giroud, because he's the big game player. But we'll see what Roma's made of. I mean, the way they're playing at the moment, you're thinking when they play, any of the top teams in the league, it's not going to look pretty. But Mourinho does find ways to find your strength and make it a weakness, and force you to beat them in other ways. And so I fully expect that from Roma. As one of the comments said, I think Dino said in the chat, like, hopefully Lukaku doesn't play, for our sake, Lukaku doesn't play, because he does play well against Milan. He can get between the center backs who are not that big and strong. He can bully his way around as he has in the past. Is he healthy enough to do that? I don't know, but he has that always in him. So hopefully we don't see him, but that's going to be an interesting chess match there between Pioli and Mourinho, and I fully expect that to be a tight game. Though I expect Milan to win, I think it's going to be a lot closer than the first couple games for Milan, I think. But it'll be certainly a fascinating aspect, and Roma have to pick it up. Not only did the goal scoring, I think Pellegrini's been playing really well so far this year, but the rest of the team, the defense has got to pick up. Terracciano has been okay so far. He's got to warm up to this team, get used to his new players. Spinazzola doesn't look quite himself just yet. And Cristante, to his credit, he looks okay for him, all right. But Roma's not there yet, but it'll take time, hopefully, for them.
It's maybe the parts need to come together a little bit too. To your point,
all Juve cast in the chat.
That's good to hear. Good to have them, and good to have them in there. So we just that's a concern I have about Roma. I have that concern about Fiorentina. Although Fiorentina is going to want to keep possession and they'll take their chances. I mean, So that's something that you have to think about. But that's where I'm at with some of these teams right now. I mean, I think that Milan beat two mid-table teams fairly comfortably. Coming back to them, two teams that I think that they dropped points against last season. And people will sit there and say, well, let's see if they, it's one thing to do it against them, but it's another thing to do it against the, the Seven Sisters or the better teams. Well, you better do it against them. I was sitting as like, it was like just kind of making a comparison, but National Football League, the Steelers went undefeated in the preseason, but Kenny Pickett got to play against the backups and third stringers. And he drove. Yeah, he had five touchdown. He played 5 series and scored 5 touchdowns. But don't you want him to score touchdowns against? Because if they don't, and if they're not executing against the 2s and 3s, it's not going to look good when you have to play against the better players. So same thing here. If Milan are going to be ready to play against the big teams and try to reclaim this Scudetto, these are the performances and the statements that they need to make.
Napoli are telling you, Napoli did this all last year. They took care of what they had to on the lower teams, and they're showing so far this season they can do the same thing again. So anybody's going to compete with Napoli this year. And I've had my comments about Rudy Garcia this year and my worries about him, but Napoli are still a good solid core of a team that they had last year. They can handle these teams, and so if you want to compete with them, the Milans, the Inters, the Juves, whoever, you have to beat these teams that are below you in the table. And what we've seen so far this year, last year, Inter and Milan could not do that. They struggled, and that's why they finished where they finished in the table, so far behind Napoli. So far, so good. It's what you want to do, what you want to see. They look comfortable in both those games, so that's a good start. Again, both those teams are traditionally struggle against these teams that are provincial teams. For some reason, they find a way to blow the game. They haven't done this stuff. They look fairly solid overall. So you want to see more of that. And again, with any of these big teams, until they face each other, and the first test is this Friday for Milan and Roma, how do they do against each other, against the Seven Sisters? That's the true test. We said that last year with Napoli to start the season. Yeah, they looked on fire against the provincial teams. We said, what do they look like against a top Seven Sister? First game against Milan, a hell of a game where they won 2-1 at the San Siro, and Cavada had a really great game, and so did Osimhen. Or Osimhen didn't even play the first game. And that's when you're like, okay, look, maybe Napoli is for real. They can play. They can play at a dangerous venue. So we'll see how, as these weeks progress and how these matchups come on, how these teams fare. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the Romas and Lazios, Atalantas of the world compete against these other Seven Sisters that are at the higher end of the Seven Sister list.
Are you in agreement, as some of the chat are all sitting here saying that it's Milan, Napoli, Inter three-way fight for the title? I after 2 games, I'm not satisfied with reaching that conclusion yet. I think that all 3 of them will certainly be in the hunt. And I know that that's low-hanging fruit to reach for. But if you had to pick a team that is not those 3 that will sort this out and jump back into this, who do you give the best chance to?
Well, I will say this at our preview pod. I did say those 3, along with Juventus, would be in the mix, all very tight for the title. And even though I've changed my opinion on the top 4, I think teams that are outside of those 3, that the top 3 at the moment, I would say certainly Juventus could turn it around with not only the team but the manager that they have. They know how to get wins. It's a fact. They may not look pretty at times. Most of the time, they know how to get wins. Allegri knows how to get wins. I would also keep an eye on look for Lazio. I really do like Lazio's team from last year, and they can figure out how to be without Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. They can get some other pieces in there and get it to work. I think they can right their ship, and Roma as well. You cannot discount Roma. They have more mental problems than do anything else. Got to get the goals in. I like seeing Belotti, a kind of resurgence of him this season, over the last many years that he's been quiet, especially last year. So, yeah, I would say those are the 3 teams I would look out for. And I would say don't discount Atalanta. Yes, we know they don't have Europe this year, but they've looked mighty good offensively. And some of these pieces they got, Koop Miners is starting to come into his own now. He's been given the keys to this team to be like to lead everything, the quarterback, if you will. He's looked good. He's pushed up on plays when he had to. He stays deep when he have to. Koop Miners is going to be a player we're going to be talking about, maybe MVP of the season, come the end of the season. So we'll see. But those are probably 3-4 teams I would say look out for.
I said one team, Richard. You
I can't pick one. Man.
Basically ran down the rest of the league.
Hellas Verona, all right? Hellas Verona.
You know what? I'm going to still say Roma. And for the reasons that I just explained, I said, okay, they had 2 game environments that's not the way they win, Yeah. They win by, being more organized, being more compact. I've never seen Roma so exposed under Mourinho. And I think that's something that's going to get corrected. They got off to a very shocking start, but I think that's something, that they clean up and fix. I'm not there with Lazio. I think that the Milinkovic-Savic impact, and it's only been 2 games, I think it's felt. The dynamism that he played with in midfield for Lazio, I think, is sorely missing there. So, so I'll tip Roma. I still want to keep an eye on Juventus. My concern, Alberto, is Alexandro is getting past it. He sometimes doesn't know. Looks like he doesn't know who to mark. He doesn't know where to defend and where to be. And there were gaps between him and Bremer that Bologna exploited and probably should have scored more than one. And I think that good teams that have a good collection of playmaking midfielders and pace that can play behind a striker that they can play off of are going to be equipped to exploit that. So that's something that we kind of touched on. And that was some of what stood out for me when I was watching the Juventus Bologna game. So I'd be curious, Alberto, to hear your reaction to that in the chat. So I'll give you a chance.
I got a question for you, though. We talked about the top of the table. Let's look at the bottom of the table. If you look at the bottom 6 places, or even 7, any team with 1 point or less, right? Roma, Bologna, Cagliari, Torino, Udinese, Lazio, Empoli, and Sassuolo. Of those teams, which one or two do you feel is poised to remain in those positions as the season goes on? Not get out of that position, but stay in that position as the season of those teams mentioned.
No, it's easily Cagliari. I'm sorry, George. It's and right now, and Petagna is going to come over, and I think they're trying to find the biggest collection of stiffs to play striker for them, which is very concerning. I kind of get what they're trying to do. A guy like Yanto comes in and he can provide some service. He can hit it to a guy like Pavoletti, or Pavoletti left the game injured, and you've got Oristano. You've got if Petagna arrives, guys that can get on the end of crosses if they can make the runs. I still don't know how Shomurodov fits into this team. And then Nandez is playing kind of as this weird 10 position.
Yeah.
Alberto kind of agrees with me, by the way, so that's good. And I don't think that's a natural position for Nandez. So I just wonder where the goals come from. And that's my biggest concern with Cagliari.
Yeah.
Which is where I'm at with them. So it's easily them out of the teams that you named.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if I had to pick a team if I couldn't pick Cagliari, I would say, it comes down to Empoli and Sassuolo. And really, though I think both those teams would probably be in the lower half of the table, I'm worried at the moment for Sassuolo. Dionisi is one of the managers that said just possibly the sack race, did not have a great season last year after basically giving keys to a nice team from De Zerbi. And he's not starting to, now granted, he's played two tough teams to start the season. However, they haven't looked cohesive at all. They look dysfunctional. It seems like they can't figure it out. My worry is that it's going to take them too long to figure it out. And management is going to get, trigger happy there and get rid of him because he didn't have a great season last year. If he had a great season last year, it'd be different. Like, okay, maybe gets a little bit of leniency there. But I don't know. My worry is Sassuolo is going to struggle hard at the beginning and Dionisi is going to be gone. And I think he is a good manager. I really do. But if you can't figure it out, sometimes you just got to go. I mean, now we're going to fill the shoes of what the Serbi did for sure, and even EDF to an extent over there. But yeah, it's a result-based business, and especially when the season before you weren't great and you were in that relegation hunt for some part of the season. My eyes are going to be them because they got fairly talented players. We would all agree that I think Sassuolo has some talent on their team, but they just not looking as a team at the moment. So that'd be a team I'd watch just to say, hey, keep an eye on them. If they have a really, really slow start, Dionisi might be gone.
I don't think the whole story is being told about Sassuolo yet. It's off. I mean, Atalanta and at Napoli are, to start the season is very difficult. So I think Empoli is going to be another team that I think you're going to be concerned about at this, at this moment. We talked about the playmaking. We talked about what they've got available to them. Monza played circles around them at the weekend. That's very concerning.
Certainly in the first half, for sure.
Right, but it's my hope is that they can figure something out because when they're on, they're an exciting team to watch. Yep. They got to get the Parisi question answered with left back. With him now being a Fiorentina player, that's part of it. But you've got some pieces from the midfield that can create. You've got Caputo, who's a proven striker in this league, although I think he's starting to show his age a little bit more as well. But they're another team that I would be concerned about, especially with the start to the season that they're going to be off to with some of the teams that they're going to have to play against. It's going to be really, really rough for them. Sassuolo, I think, gets this figured out. The quality up front and what they've got in attack is too good to not to.
Ultimately, that's what got Hellas out of the relegation last year, right? The talent eventually got them through.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah. Where Empoli, they're just going to have such a very daunting fixture list to start the season that you question, what's it going to do to this? This is because it's still aside from Caputo, it's a pretty young team. What does it do to their psyche? So that'll be interesting to see how Empoli responds as they go. So, because I think last week we read off their fixture list for Serie A, and the first 6 games were as brutal as anybody could be given. So,
would you agree? And it's again, all 3 of these teams, the top 3 teams, they've really faced nobody so far. But would you say of the top 3, the best defense is, without a shadow of a doubt, Inter is the best defense? Or would you say Napoli, or would you say Milan?
I would say Inter.
Presently.
I would say Inter, and I think they're getting better with Pavard coming. I don't know. I don't think Napoli has been tested yet defensively. I think there's certainly, and Milan's only conceded 1 goal.
But they've looked shaky defensively, I think.
They have looked shaky. They have given up some spaces, and Maignan can only bail you out so much.
Yeah.
I want to give Tomori the benefit of the doubt and find that he recaptures his form. The goal they conceded to Torino, you really can't blame anyone. That is just one of those weird situations.
You're getting cleared, and the ball comes back, and
you clear it. You leave your markers because you're trying to step out, and they just get to it first, and they put it right back in right away, and it goes to the right guy. There's no one you really blame there.
Yeah. And Ollie, we know all the top 3 teams haven't been tested yet. We know that. We're just comparing apples and oranges, like, really how they look against these bad teams. But Inter look the most best prepared so far, I would say.
I guess the best statement I can make about all of this is that I think that Inter has played with the most maturity out of the 3 teams.
Fair enough.
Okay?
Defensively.
They've played with experience, knowing that this is a long season, that 2-0 at Cagliari is good. We're good here. Let's manage our way through it. 2-0 against Monza is in the fashion with which they won is good. Where, would they like to be winning 4, 5, 6? No, who wouldn't? But you take 3 points and you move on. When we get to the end of the season, when we get to those last 10, 12 games, what do we say week after week? It's not style points. It's 3 points.
Yeah.
You don't have a bunch of voters on the side. You don't have a bunch of judges on the side giving you 10s or stuff like that for your performance, and that's how you win the league. It's getting the 3 points at the end of the day, however you can get them.
I would say the way I would rate the start for the top 3 teams through 2 games, obviously against the opponents that they face. Napoli, as expected, right? Inter, impressive, I would say, and I would say Milan, surprising. I with all these new pieces, you never know how a team with all these pieces are going to fit together. They've started out well. We'll see how it goes, but that's how I would assess those 3 teams.
I would say if you just want to power rank Serie A right now, based on what we've seen, I would have Inter number 1, and I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would have Napoli 2, Milan 3.
I give you that.
Yeah. Yep. So just on
Hellas,
just
no, just kidding.
overall performance, I actually, even with Hellas Verona winning, I would have them bottom half of the table, somewhere in their bottom half of the table.
I'd have Fiorentina up there. I think Atalanta maybe even 2.
I would say the 4th team, if we're just talking about power rankings. Let me look at this.
I think it's Fiorentina because they were very impressive game 1, and they started out with a bang in game 2, and then blew it obviously. But so I have them just slightly ahead of like Atalanta, I would say.
Okay, now. Okay.
Frosinone won, Eric says.
And this is only going to be for this week, and it's going to change. So you Twitter heads and you faithful listeners of Serie A, sit down and the power rankings through 2 games.
We got to do this weekly now. It's like ESPN. We got to do this weekly now.
Yeah. 4th for me is Lecce.
Okay.
You look at Lecce's resume: 2-1 win over Lazio, and came back from 1-0 down to win, and came back from 2-0 down to Fiorentina to draw 2-2.
2 impressive games. I wouldn't fight you for that.
I would power rank them 4th right now, and come at me. All right, give me the case for Juventus, and I'll show you that Bologna game and say no.
I would certainly put Salernitana in the top 6 or 7.
I don't know if I'd have them that high. I'd probably have Juve 5, and then Fiorentina 6.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'd be right now if I was to power rank the teams based on their first 2 games. So, but I mean, you look at Lecce, they opened the season with, if I don't know, match points out along with Napoli. Yeah, but Ollie, they shithoused their way to those 6 points. They didn't even have the damn ball against Roma.
Yeah.
The 2 times they had the ball, they scored.
Kudos to Hellas, but I mean, come on, they should house their way to two wins. Granted, that's good. Good for them.
I think that gets exposed at some point. But Lecce's resume of coming from behind to beat Lazio and coming from behind to get a point from Fiorentina, to me, is more impressive than what Hellas Verona done with their 2 wins.
Hellas is going to score like 10 goals this year. They're already up to 3, so they already blew their load in the first 2 weeks of the season. So let's see where they're going. But hey, if they get a 3rd win in a row, I'm going to put them up the rankings next week. How about that?
Yeah, if Lecce may move up to number 1 if they can win next week. Who do they got next week? We got to look at this.
That's a good question.
We
Handicap our power rankings for next week, right?
Hang on a second. Make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves a little too much here.
While you're doing that, shout out to the young Italian, had me on his Instagram live. Follow him on YouTube and Instagram, and also shout out to Calcio Reno, another good podcast, Juventus podcast on YouTube. So,
Lecce hosts Salernitana.
Ooh, our power ranking is going to be affected.
Yes, we're gonna have some changes, so we'll see what happens. So, but no,
playing Allegri ball.
And if I power rank the bottom 3 at the moment, I don't know if I'd have Lazio bottom. I'd actually have Empoli bottom. So for me, it's Empoli at the bottom. It is. Actually, I take that back. It's Cagliari at the bottom. Sorry, George.
Ooh, George.
Empoli 19th.
Verona
and
away to
then
Sassuolo.
What's that?
He says Verona away to Sassuolo on Friday.
Yep. So for me, the bottom 3 would be Cagliari 20th, Empoli 19th, and then Sassuolo 18th.
Okay. Yeah, I would go the bottom 3 as it is right now. I would swap Empoli last, then Sassuolo second to last, and Lazio, just because they're not performing as they should. But they haven't looked bad, honestly.
Yep. So that's where we think we were at on the power rankings. We gave you a top 4, we gave you a bottom 3, and just kind of throw everybody in between. However you want them, we won't judge. So.
Did you have a goal of the week?
I did. I think I did a little bit here. Yes. You go first.
All right. Honorable mentions about Harawi for Verona. Ferguson's Bologna team goal. I thought that was wonderfully done there against Juventus. Number 5 for me, Colpani's first goal. I thought that was a wonderful strike from distance, top corner there. Coming in number 4, the American Captain America, Christian Pulisic. He's not Captain America. He's the captain for the U.S. Anyway. Christian Pulisic, number 4. Number 3, Duvan Zapata. Wonderful hold-up play, touch, and then powers it past the keeper. Number 2, I thought it was going to be my number 1, but it's number 2, Teo Hernandez with a lovely outside of the boot shot. And my number 1, sorry, Roma fans, Ngonge. Wonderful counterattack by them and just clinical on the finish. Ngonge and puts it away. That's my top 5.
Okay, I'm going to go with Ngonge's goal at number 5. Vlahovic's header at number 4. Wonderful cross from Ealing Jr. Zapata's goal, number 3. Colpani's first goal for Monza, number 2. Teo Hernandez was my goal of the week.
Fair enough.
So, and you can flip-flop Teo and Colpani's goals, and I wouldn't fight you on it.
Had Vlahovic's goal that he scored that goes offsides counted, that would have been my number 1, but it didn't. So,
sure. So yeah, I don't think I had Pulisic's on my list, so let's just give that an honorable mention.
You know what wasn't our talking points for today, but I think we should bring it up now.
Go ahead.
I would say, well, we obviously know who the new manager is for the Azzurri. It's Spalletti.
Yeah.
But as kind of we expected, and show me the money, Saudi Arabia comes in and steals Mancini away from the Azzurri to be their new manager. What are your thoughts on that? Are you spiteful towards him? Are you like, take the money and run? I'm like, how do you feel on this?
Thank you for the joy of giving us a European championship. Enjoy the money. But it was time. Something had to be done. It was getting, it wasn't that, he could still produce results to a certain degree, but it was getting stale. He was relying on the same guys. He was relying on the guys that won in the Euros. He was reluctant to change unless the injuries got to a point where he was forced, and where I expect Spalletti to be more experimental. I expect him to take this situation.
Di Lorenzo, you captain.
Exec some youth. I don't doubt that, and would be 100% behind that. I think he could usher out some of that old guard and bring in some of the younger upcoming players, and provide some stability. So
he's trying to get Osimhen to change his citizenship to Italian, but I don't think that'll happen.
No, that's not going to happen. No. Or Kvaratskhelia. So have to figure out a different way to do it. But it was the most natural decision.
Yep.
Continuation of the 4-3-3. A little bit of a shift in the way things are going to be done tactically. A lot of attention. I mean, and what Spalletti, when you look at his track record, what's the one position that thrives?
Number 9.
Yeah. What's the one position where we've had problems with Italy?
Number 9.
Thank you. So that's another big reason why this fit works.
Yeah.
Now he'll get to maximize he'll pick his 9 and he'll get the most out of it. And you know what? That job's wide open. I don't know if he'll go to a veteran like Immobile or if he'll go to Retegui. Retegui continues to produce for Genoa. It might be him. Yeah. Will Raspadori get enough games with Napoli to get a shot? Will Scamacca get enough minutes with Atalanta to get a shot now that he's there? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a resurgence with Belotti per se, but those are going to be just some of the ideas. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm with you on the, thank you for what you've done. Got it to Euros and you're moving on. But it's also part of me is like, why the F did you wait so long? I mean, yes, Saudi Arabia probably came out of the blue and said, hey, do you want the whole world and you'll come be our manager? I'm sure that happened last minute. However, man, the way that he left the Azzurri was a kick in the nuts. Really, it was. And thank heavens that Spalletti decided to take a year off from coaching club teams, that he was available. Because if he wasn't, then what do you do? So we lucked out that Spalletti is available, because if you had Conte or whoever else, I don't know if it would work out as well as it did the first time around, or anybody else. I don't know if anybody else could be a good enough fit with what Mancini was doing, because as you mentioned, he ran a 4-3-3. Spalletti runs a 4-3-3. Yes, slight deviations in how they play, but it's the most natural fit. And so on such short notice, I think this Azzurri team can thrive under Spalletti, at least in the short term. And then eventually, when he gets the team the way he wants it, it'll be a nicely functioned team there with a number 9 for a change. So I'm really looking forward to the way this is going to happen. Again, if I was in Mancini's position, I was offered all the money in the world, sure, I'd probably do the same thing, right? I think we all would. Yeah. It's surprising and not all at the same time. But Azzurri are in good hands with Spalletti, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised we see a lot of Raspadori on the team, honestly, because he's a Napoli guy, as one of Spalletti's guys, and obviously Di Lorenzo is now the captain for the Azzurri. So you're gonna see a lot of Napoli influence on the team, and I'm excited to see how this team will play going forward with him. I'm gonna be I almost want to watch the first practice under Spalletti, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a step forward for Italy, and I'm George, come on, we got 36 more match weeks, but
not the whole team.
I'm not there yet. I'm not putting the whole 11 in there yet. I do like this Luvumbo though. And I hope that Ranieri is going to have to play him more, because they don't have anybody else with any pace out there. So hopefully he sees a little more time. So moving on to the transfers.
Oh yeah.
So what we know right now is, because we're getting closer to deadline day here on Friday, so we'll kind of get a little bit ahead of this. We know that Romelu Lukaku is with Roma.
Yep.
Jesper Lindstrom is with Napoli. Those were the two big ones that were announced today. Alexis Salamakers looks to be heading to Bologna on loan with an option to buy, but not an obligation to buy, an option. We also learned that Moussa Barrow will be leaving Bologna. He's heading to Al Tawan in Saudi Arabia, so we lose him.
Man, unfortunate.
Yep. Torino look to be have asked, and these are all from Nicolo Schiera, at Nico Schiera. Torino have asked Tottenham for Yafet Tanganga on loan with option to buy. Just kind of going further down, because Torino was making a bid for Duvan Zapata. Duvan Zapata doesn't want to go. But while Bologna are making some strides and doing some things, they did take a hit. Nico Dominguez is gone. He's going to Nottingham Forest. But it almost feels like it's an exchange, because Remo Freuler is coming back to Serie A and he's going to Bologna.
Good.
So
good for him. He'll do well.
So he'll be able to slot in basically and play
such a midfielder.
Dominguez's role in a sense.
Yeah.
might be a little bit of a different player, but we shall see. Emmanuel Dennis getting closer to Udinese from Nottingham Forest. Moise Kean wants to stay at Juventus. Milan confident to finalize Mehdi Taremi's signing from Porto. Expected today a new round of talks to try and close the deal. Agreed personal terms with the striker.
Would be their 27th signing of the season.
Yeah. Just insane.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What is it with Lazio selling off a bunch of players 4 days before the Mercato closes? I think they're just trying to get the back end of the roster moved. I didn't hear anybody of note getting ready to go, but Lindstrom's in for $30 million from Eintracht Frankfurt.
Love it.
You've got some Serie A knowledge. I love this move. I mean, Chucky Lozano moves on. He goes back to PSV Eindhoven. I think that's where he was before he arrived, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like he's headed back. I love this move for Napoli. It gives you a guy with good technical quality, but some pace on the right hand side, which is something that clearly Politano lacks. But Lozano doesn't really have an abundance either. So I think this makes Napoli and their attack much more dangerous. This is an upgrade, in my opinion, with Lindstrom. What do you say?
Yeah, he's added some height to their team as well. He's an interesting signing. He's mostly played like as a wing back type position previously, so seeing him a little bit further forward would be interesting. Hey, less defensive responsibilities, so it means you can be more on the offensive end. This guy's got a good shot. He can cross the ball very well. Good work ethic, or good work pace, I would say. So I love the signing for Napoli. I mean, it just adds more depth to their team. And yeah, if you can make the right side a little bit stronger, add a little bit more height, so when they're in the box, it can be even more dangerous than they already are. Yeah, this is nothing but good signing for Napoli, and I don't think they even paid that much for him. Honestly, I don't know what the price was. Lindstrom is certainly young. He's 23. He's got a lot of upside, but I mean, I think this is a steal, honestly, from Eintracht Frankfurt. I know the Frankfurt guys. Actually, I know the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast very well, and I'm sure they're gonna be hating this loss for them. So that's a great signing for Napoli, I think.
Yeah. What do you think of Lukaku to Roma?
It's interesting. It certainly is interesting.
I agree.
I mean, Mourinho loves it because even though he loves Inter, it's like everyone hates Lukaku. Lots of people hate Mourinho, so it's like a perfect marriage in that sense. They also got Azmoun for Leverkusen, who's a player that Milan were going after, so that'll help with them as well. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious to see how this works. I think it can work well. Obviously, if he's motivated and he's in shape, he's going to be dangerous. Is he either? I would imagine he's motivated, because if he truly believes, and we don't know the actual story behind everything that's going on with Inter and all that stuff, but if what we hear, if he feels spited in any way, especially against Inter and Juve, he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And at least when he plays those teams, that's when you need a player to step up, and that guy who can bully defenses, he can do it if he's in shape. So let's see if he gets. I don't know what kind of shape he's ready. I know Apex said at Chelsea he really had no preseason, so it probably might take him a few weeks to get in there. But if, like I said, a motivated, fit Lukaku is dangerous for any team, and they have a player who can bully defenses that no one else on their team can do. No one. Belotti can do it. Belotti's decent at it, but he can't do it. Tammy Abraham couldn't do it. No one else. I mean, Paul DeBall is not going to move anybody, right? Paul DeBall is not going to move the referee. So I think having a big body like that in the box is to push people around and play the style that we've been talking about in this league, that where the striker holds up the ball and feeds it to the midfielders who are trailing, like a Pellegrini or whomever. This could work.
Yep. I like the fit, is what I'm going to say. I can just see him holding it up and Spinazzola coming down the left. I can see Dybala coming through the mid. I think that he's far more effective in that hold-up role than Belotti is. For the physicality that Belotti possesses, I think Belotti would rather lean on the shoulder of the last defender, and get played in. Where Lukaku doesn't mind absorbing the punishment and letting midfielders get in front of him, like we're seeing a lot of in this league so far.
Correct.
So those would be the things that I would say might help Roma here. And And then if you're going to get into a low block counterattacking style, I mean, Lukaku played it wonderfully at Inter, although he had a support striker with him. So can Dybala be what Lautaro Martinez is? Probably not. I mean, they're two totally different players. So what's that?
Belotti. Belotti thrive under as a second striker.
I don't know if Mourinho even wants to play that, though. I think he's going to stick with that 3-4-2-1.
Yeah. I think Pellegrini's going to come to even as good as Pellegrini played last year. He's already come out more offensively. He's looking like even another version of himself, even better version of himself. So
yeah,
I think having Pellegrini and Dybala back there will be a nice compliment as opposed to like a Lautaro. Lautaro does like a little bit of what both of them do. I think having both those players there, I think will be nice compliment to Lukaku if he is, indeed in shape that like they hope he is.
Yeah. Taremi. I don't want to count. I like the prospect of it, but he's not a Milan player yet.
Show me that jersey, official jersey.
Yep, exactly. So it's hard to comment on it, but man, he would be able to slide right in and pick up where Giroud leaves off when Giroud's contract is up. So in that sense, I love the move if Milan can get it, but we can't get carried away here. So
Apex has got a good point. IOR from Roma could be a nice secondary player you might put in there behind Romelu Lukaku. That gives a little bit more freedom for Dybala and Pellegrini. So all options for them.
I've always liked IOR. So
yeah, he's good in legal.
So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that comment or that statement. I think there's some teams that are just done. Inter, I think, are done unless something at the last second happens. I think they're going to be satisfied with what they've got going in. It's astonishing to me that Samardzic is not an Inter player. It's astonishing to me that Samardzic is still a Udinese. He's a heck of a player. He's not going to be at Udinese much longer.
No.
Well, I still, and I stand by what we said in our preview pod when we had Joe on. I mean, there's a lot to be excited about with Serie A, with the arrivals. I mean, the departures are disappointing to see them go.
For sure.
But the new players that come in are going to bring a fresh perspective of things on the league. They're going to make it exciting. It's going to be, I think Serie A is becoming an even more technical league. It's always been tactical. It always will be. But with the players that are being attracted and coming in, you're seeing a nice blend of technique, pace, quality. Yeah, I mean, it's overall for Serie A, it's been a good mercato despite the departures.
Dominic asks, is Krunic staying or going? I say if Pioli had his druthers, a nice term we use here in the States, I would say Krunic stays. But if Fenerbahce offers enough, I'm sure I almost said Elliott Management. Redbird would say, yeah, go. If you're going to go for 12 million, go for it.
I agree. I can't see them turning that down. So we'll see what has to happen.
Who becomes the next teacher's pet if Krunic leaves? Not Adley.
We'll have to see.
It'd be nice if it was Adley, but yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to see. I'm still trying to figure that out. Who else?
At this point.
Yep. I saw Matteo Benetti seeing he was in the chat earlier. He mentioned in Twitter, and he theorized, well, why isn't Amrabat's getting tossed around? It was Manchester United, then it's Atletico Madrid. Why wouldn't Milan go for him? Well, it seems like, my easy answer to that is, Amrabat would be an excellent fit in the new 4-3-3. Just plug him in the middle there, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's the money. I think it's what it's going to cost. It might actually it would not be, I don't want to touch on what he said and just say, look, I love the idea. I love the theory. I think Milan would probably have to spend more to get him than Atleti or Manchester United would have to, just as Fiorentina would. If they're going to sell him, they're not going to want to sell him to somebody within the same league. Yeah.
Though they have a penchant to selling players to their arch rivals Juventus, so maybe they would.
You never know.
I would love to see Amrabat stay in the league. I think he's a fantastic player. If he gets with the right fit, he could do some special things. Obviously, I know the position he played with Morocco in the World Cup was fantastic. He just really shined to see what kind of talent this guy's had. And when he's been in the city and been in Serie A, he hasn't always been playing that same position. So if he can find a team that he can play a position that he feels comfortable in, this does his job and worries about nothing else, I think that'd be what he needs. And maybe the transfer will happen. Who knows? But I'm not expecting it.
Yep. Well, no, neither am I. I mean, there's no chance. And then the other thing is that when you look at Milan's buying patterns, they're pretty much capping the majority of their purchases in the 20s.
Yeah.
And numbers thrown around for Amrabat has been in the 40s. So I just can't see it. Just can't see it happening. And then what do you do when Benacer's back? Because I don't think you can double pivot them and go back to the old way of doing things. You could maybe do a rotation because when Benacer comes back, he's not going to be. You're not going to just throw him right in and have him start playing right away. So
that's it. Well.
Sure, we'll see. I mean, Matteo tweeted that, and I love the idea. I would love to see Amrabat in a Milan shirt. I don't think the economics are there for it to happen. I think Milan would have to pay more for him than Atleti or Man United would have to, just because of the being in the same league. That's just my take. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted it all, and let's. It's probably now time for the world's most popular hashtag game. It is time for Who Won Calcio. Twitter, Richard, take it away.
All right, lead us off. It's our old friend Perisnich. So the original tweet was from Sempre Milan, and it says AC Milan will spend halftime on the sidelines because the air conditioning inside the dressing room isn't working. And Perisnich goes, they went from AC Milan to no AC Milan.
But
yeah. It's the old Silvio Berlusconi trick there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Scotty Bowman or Scotty Bowman in the NHL. He used to do this all the time to the opposition.
All right, we've got Zach Lowy at Zach Lowy. In order to protest against the club's lack of recruitments following the relegation, the Spanish third-tier Malaga fans went to the airport and greeted random strangers as if they were new signings.
I love this. It's not Serie A, by the way. I love this. Saying F you to the management, and they're having fun while they're doing it. So that's great. Let's see. What moving on. Oh my god, I don't know if I want to see this one. Saturnion, and it's of heart standing in line before the kickoff and hearing the Serie A anthem playing. Oh god.
Oh mercy. Let's see. Perisich, Lukaku waking up with a new personality. He is now a childhood Lazio fan. That's good.
Oh, that's great.
That's our leader in the clubhouse right now.
It is. Well, speaking of Lukaku, it's Napoleonissimo says, Lukaku, after watching this Roma performance. That's up there.
Non ti lasceremo mai. All right. Zing. Perisich has been on a roll. You're playing Milan and the ref blows the kickoff. It's Milan
right at the penalty spot. Fair enough. Fair shout.
That's creative.
It was. I like it. All right, moving on. Hey, a new one. That's Lo Stilo Juve. It says, back-to-back preseason Scudetto Dark Horse champions added to the trophy case. Roma 2, Salernitana 2, Hellas 2, Roma 1. Oh, sorry, Roma.
Oh, mercy. Okay, so this is at @not_Morata, 687 days until Szczesny's contract runs out. Mourinho at press conference explaining how he can't compete with other clubs after spending $200 million and signing Dybala, Aouar, Paredes, Belotti, Ndika, and Sanchez.
Yeah, that's probably spot on there. Oh God, this next one is from Tancredi posted this one, but I saw several people posting this, and it's Cagliari fans against Inter and showing the wonderful side of them. There's a twist to this video, and here he comes. God bless Cagliari fans. God bless Cagliari fans.
So good to have them back in the league.
Yeah.
All right, at Napoleonissimo, Bonucci seeing Lukaku in the Rome airport.
Oh God.
He really is a master at his craft.
He is. All right. It's what got you so mad is Pioli when they told him Krunic wants to leave.
No. Wait.
At Football Kareem.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
The original tweet was Milan are looking to sign Taremi. The club are negotiating terms tomorrow morning.
Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay
Yep.
calm. Everybody stay calm.
From The Office.
Yeah. Stay fucking calm.
All
Is that
right.
it? That is it. All right.
That is it.
All right. What you got?
Let's see. Okay, so it's either at not_Morata or it is the Perisic Lukaku waking up with a new personality.
Let's see. I like Napoli Nismo with the oh my god, Carlo Ancelotti singing. I like Perisic for sure. And what was the first one? No,
Or Bonucci, the one with Bonucci and Lukaku
yeah, that was a funny one
in the
too.
Rome airport was funny.
I do like the Lukaku with Lazio one, or the Napolinismo one with Roma. So I'm with you with Perisic.
All right, so the Lukaku one?
Yeah.
Okay, that's our winner. Perisic has done it again, just edging out some of the other contenders. So his entry about – where is this damn thing? Okay, there it is. Lukaku waking up with a new personality. He is now a childhood Lazio fan. That is the winner of this week's edition of Who Won Calcio Twitter. So I will go ahead and put that up and I'll share something with the people, Richard.
Yeah. Well, first, one of the ones I thought was in this, and I thought I had nominated this, but I guess not. It was a video where Onana, after 2 games, I think Manchester United are 0-2 or something like that, giving up goals left and right, and he's going to be like the same thing like Lukaku. I love Inter. I want to go back to them. I always want to be with them. So there's that. So I don't know where that video ended up, but anyway, yeah. Shout out once again. Shout out the Young Italian on both Instagram and YouTube. Here, I was on. We did an Instagram live together. Talk a little bit Napoli, a little about Serie A. So that was interesting. We might do some more work with them as well later down the line. They do all things Italian, not just Italian football. And then also shout out to Calcio with Reno. Juventus fan does nice videos, not only for Juventus, but all Serie A. And then people I saw in the chat in terms of podcasts and stuff like that. Obviously, shout out to Matteo Bonetti for jumping on the chat as well.
Yeah.
All Juve cast as well. Give them a follow.
You got to get on with us soon, man. Your resume is not complete without an appearance on the series. Just saying.
Yeah, those are my shouts. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but it's all right.
I just shout outs to all of the podcasts that are covering Serie A.
Killing it.
Spotlight's a little bit more on all of us now with when you're talking about, especially on this side of the pond, when you're talking about Americans that are playing in Serie A like Pulisic and Weah and McKennie now and Musa, chief among them. So we appreciate the listenership. We appreciate the added listeners for us, but just some other, if you wanted like fan specifics, the Raf and Raf rant over there, all things Napoli. Those are 2 great guys. The Forza Napoli pod with Joe Fischetti, who was our guest here on our preview della Madonnina. Check them out. Obviously remiss if I don't mention Vinny and Stevie and Presidente over there at Milan Weekly Podcast, and they're on Monday nights. We do not pod on Monday nights because that is out of respect to them. We want to make sure we're out of their way because we know we've got some people here in the chat that follow, watch and listen to our podcast, that watch and listen to that one as well. So shout out to them. All Juve cast. Alberto was in the chat with us.
Mm-hmm.
Give him some time if you want to learn a little bit more about Juventus. Lazio Lounge. The guys over there do great stuff covering all things Lazio. Who's our Roma guys? Chiesa di Totti.
Yeah.
And I'm just, man, I'm leaving some things out, leaving some people out. The Italian Football Podcast, check them out. Good guys. They've always had our backs.
Yep.
So that's Carlo and Nima. So please follow them. Please follow and support them. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, so many great people that are out there grinding it out in the podcast streets, trying to deliver some Calcio content. And I want to make sure that I mention as many as I possibly could. And forgive me if I left you out.
I got one. La Turna podcast, the Genoa podcast out of New York City. I believe New York City or Toronto. I think it's Canada. So shout out to them. They have a recording last night or tonight. I forget what it is, but yeah, shout out to them too.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's have a great season together. Let's all respect each other's work. Let's enjoy each other's work, and let's enjoy delivering the information on how we're seeing things go down in Calcio here on this side of the pond for our listeners to enjoy and for our viewers to enjoy. The chat was unbelievable tonight, man. This was as lively a chat as we've had. So thank you, and please keep on coming. We're going to try to make this be a regular thing on Tuesday night, so you know where to find us. We didn't consult about this. I'm just making an assumption, Richard.
Works for me.
Okay. Perfect. So I want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us. If you are watching this here on our YouTube channel for the first time and you want more, please, first of all, drop a like. It means a lot to us. But subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. This way you're notified of when we are going live on the air. We do little mini video drops of this podcast throughout the week to kind of give broken down takes, fractions of the podcast. If you want, we did it with our first impression. So if you wanted our first impression of Inter, we had it. Richard does a great job of editing it, breaking it down, and releasing that. There's just our take on Inter. So we'd love you to listen to the whole thing. Okay. But, sometimes if you want to just hear the snippets, you can do that too. So,
yep.
All right. Well, with that, we'll put a bow on this edition of Serie A Sit Down, where we have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, wherever there is podcasts. There is Serie A Sit Down. Richard is found at R_KHARMAN. I'm at FTC_21 over there on Twitter. We also are at Serie A Sit Down on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check us out on Facebook. So we're in all of the social media spaces. So give us a follow in each and every one of those. And we will be back next Tuesday. We'll have breakdown of Roma Milan. We'll have breakdown of Inter Fiorentina. We will have breakdown of all of the European draws and how the Serie A teams fared and sizing up their prospects for qualifications from the respective groups. So we will have a lot to digest and break down. So please be sure to be back with us next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, on the YouTube channel. So anything else to add, Richard? Oh, and check out the website, www.serieasitdown.com. So, but that will do it for tonight. For Richard, I'm Frank, and as always, tell your paisans about us. Ciao.
Mette in mezzo la caccia di Lorenzo e il Napoli